Hi, this is Andy from GPS Training. In this next video I'm going to show you how to create what we call a turn-by-turn route for cycling. So this is a route that we're going to follow on the roads rather than off-road routes in Basecamp planning software. So a little bit different to the previous exercises where we've done direct routes off-road. I've already got the software open, I've just minimized it at the bottom of the screen. So I'm just going to left click on my Basecamp logo just to open up this software. As per the previous videos, I've already got my GPS device connected, so in the top left hand window when I scroll down the bar at the side I can see devices Oregon 700 with the maps that I've got on my GPS displayed. So what I'm going to do now is a cycling route using turn-by-turn routing. So from the maps menu at the top I'm just going to make sure I've got the correct map selected. So at the minute it's just on the basic global map, so I can either select my Garmin GB Discoverer 50K for my Ordnance Survey maps, or if you're using something like the Topo Active maps on your GPS, or I've got Topo UK and Ireland on my internal storage, I could pick that map instead. So I'm just going to use the Garmin GB Discoverer 50K OS map. All of the Garmin Ordnance Survey maps do have turn-by-turn routing, what we call routable data for the roads. It's just the off-road data where normally the 1 to 50 map doesn't have routable data off-road. Some of the new mapping that's coming out, certainly the Topo Pro 1 to 25, 1 to 50 map that's just came out does have some routable off-road data just for the national parks. But when we're talking about on-road routable for turn-by-turn instructions, a bit like a car sat nav for a cyclist, the nice thing is all of Garmin's Ordnance Survey maps have that routable data on the roads, and if you've got the Topo Active maps or the Topo Light maps, exactly the same, there's routable data on the roads. So I've now got my Ordnance Survey map on the screen. I can zoom in and zoom out to get it at a proper scale and actually get the 1 to 50 to load. But the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to get this map to the area of the country that I want to start my cycle ride in, and then we'll create under the My Collection, we'll create a new folder to start storing our cycle routes, whereas at the moment I've just got folders named walking. So the first thing I'm going to do is get the map to somewhere that I want to start the cycle ride from. This time I'm going to use the search box in the top right hand window and type in Rothbury, which is where we're based in Northumberland, and just hit the magnifying glass at the side, left click on the magnifying glass, and now in this top results box it'll start searching for anywhere with Rothbury in the name. Little black dot tells me it's a village, centre of the village or a town. If I double click on that Rothbury, there's other things coming up with Rothbury in the name. We've got the golf club, the library in the village. I'm just left clicking on somewhere with a black dot next to it. That tends to be a village or town centre, and the 101 kilometres was the distance away from where the map was that I had it at before we actually selected this wording Rothbury in the search box. So now I've got the map at Rothbury, I can simply close this top results box down by left clicking on the white cross in the top right hand corner there next to the top results heading, and that'll close that box down. I've now got the map on Rothbury. As default and as per the previous videos, it's normally the hand tool that is selected as standard, this little pan tool that lets me left click and move the map around. I can use the scroll wheel on the USB mouse that I'm using to zoom in and out. If you haven't got a scroll wheel on your mouse, you can use this little plus and minus bar to zoom in and out on the map page. So we can zoom in and out on the map page that way. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to create a cycle ride from Rothbury just up to the town of Alnwick that we can see to the north here. Now, something we showed in one of the earlier videos, you can put a detail level box that we often don't use unless we're using the topo maps to bring more information on the map. But when we're using the Ordnance Survey maps, if you want to get the map zoomed out at the sort of distance level that I'm at now, but you actually want it to be an Ordnance Survey map rather than this road atlas map, the detail level box is a useful one to put in your toolbars. I've already got it in the toolbars here. It's the box in the top left that says medium. If you haven't got that detail level box, you can go into your view, the view menu, toolbars, and just put a tick next to the box that says detail level. And then in this detail level box, now if I change that from medium to a higher level, what we'll see on the screen, rather than the map being at rather than the map being at road atlas level, it'll change it to an Ordnance Survey level, but a much bigger size on the screen. So you can have a play about with that detail level box just so you can get the map to the level that you want. I'm just going to put this one down a little bit from the higher level and just put it down to probably one just above the medium. I'll put it on the high level and that's enough for what I want to do today. I'm just going to zoom in there just so I can see a bigger area of the map at Ordnance Survey level rather than it being at Road Atlas level. So I'm now ready to start this route planning. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a folder to save this cycle ride into. So from the earlier videos in this My collection, I'd created a folder called Walking and then a subfolder called Lake District, and then started creating list files to put my actual walking routes in. So what I'm going to do now is just hit the little minus tab at the side of that walking folder just to minimize everything down, and I'm going to highlight this My collection in the top left and go into File, New, List folder just to create a folder called Cycling, so I can store my cycle rides somewhere and separate them from my walking routes. Hit the return button. I've now got the cycling folder in the top right. If you renamed it incorrectly when you typed over the new name wording that came up, you can simply right click and select rename and then just rename accordingly, and then just hit the return on your keyboard when you're finished renaming the folder. So as per my walking folder, where I created an extra subfolder called Lake District, because this cycle rides in Northumberland, I'm going to highlight my cycling folder and use the File, New, List folder again and create a subfolder called Northumberland. It's how far you want to break down your folders. I could create another folder within this Northumberland folder called Rothbury, but again it's personal to how you want to break down your extra folders and subfolders. So now I've got this folder Northumberland created, I'm now going to create my electronic sheet of paper that I'm going to draw the cycle ride onto. So in this folder called Northumberland, I now need to open up File, New, and something called a list, which is the electronic sheet of paper that I'm going to draw the route out onto on the computer screen. So we select File, New, List, and this new list I'll actually name with the name of the cycle ride. So I'm going to call this Rothbury to Alnwick. Again, if you rename something by error, you don't rename it how you meant to, you can right click on the list file the same as we could right click on a folder and simply select the rename and rename it, and then just hit the return button. So I've now got this Rothbury to Alnwick list file highlighted. The important thing now we need to do, all of the previous exercises we've talked about something called direct routing for doing off-road, whether it be mountain biking or walking, something off-road where we're just drawing straight lines between points on a map. I actually want this to be a turn-by-turn route where the software will actually snap the route onto the roads for me. So what we actually do in this little drop-down box that we've used in earlier exercises called activity profiles, we select that box and we pick the option for either bicycling or tour cycling. Now what Garmin do in some preset options, they'll decide whether the bicycling or tour cycling is avoiding a certain type of road or not. We can go and amend that, so really it comes down to personal choice whether you prefer the terminology tour cycling or bicycling. I'm going to pick tour cycling and just select tour cycling, and we'll see we've got a little picture of a bike now with a flag on the back instead of the direct routing 3 square boxes. Now before I actually start snapping the route on the roads, I'm going to show you something that we haven't yet looked at within these training videos. I'm going to go back into the edit at the top and options. It's where right at the start of the training videos we showed you where you set up your units of measure and position format. But when we go into the edit and options this time, I'm going to look at the option called activity profile, and because we've got tour cycling selected at the moment, that's the option that's came up automatically. And when we select routing underneath this tour cycling heading, it'll actually show me how Garmin Basecamp has predetermined the type of route that we want to do, the type of avoidances. So it's saying if we're tour cycling, we want to avoid interstates and major highways, but we're not avoiding unpaved roads. If I now select bicycling instead of tour cycling, you'll see the bicycling, the only difference is it avoids unpaved roads. So I'll just put that back to the tour cycling. So if you decided tour cycling you want to avoid something slightly different, or when you actually start snapping the route onto the map page you find it's not letting you go on certain roads that you want to go on, you may have to come back to this edit and options and go into the activity profile and just select tick the types of roads that you want to avoid and the features. Now the actual route preference for faster time and elevation, That is relevant if we just click a start and end and let the software determine where it wants to take us. But if you snap a lot of extra points to where you want the route to go, it's not as important because you're determining where you want the route to go. But it is important if you're just going to snap a start and end point and let it calculate the route, deciding whether you want it to be a faster, shorter distance, etc. A bit like a car sat nav. So that's just where you put those settings in. So I'm just going to select OK there, just to save those settings. So again, if you want to change how the routing is done for cycling, we go into this edit, options, same as we did right at the start for position, format and measurements, but rather than the measurement option we looked at right at the start of the training videos, we select the activity profile to our cycling, or if it was bicycling, whichever one you're using, and then you select the routing and untick or tick to suit your personal preferences. So I'm just going to select OK again there. So now I'm going to go on to this route tool to create a new route. So it's still the 3 green boxes for creating a new route, even though we've changed the routing to our cycling. Again, if you haven't got these tools in your toolbars for new route, you can go into tools and select the route tool that way. And now I've got the little pencil symbol on the screen, and I can click my first point in the centre of Rothbury. And if I click my next point just before the crossroads in the top right of the screen and just left click, what you'll see is my route's now automatically calculated, and I've got the pink line actually snapped on the road for me. I'm at the top of the map page now and I want to move it. I've actually got a white arrow at the top of the screen. Whenever you see that white arrow, it means when you left click with your mouse, you can move the move the map without accidentally marking a point. We can still use, if we move the cursor over to the left hand side of the map page, we've still got that up, down, left and right arrows within the compass bezel that we can click on as well to move the map. And we've got the zoom bar in this top left window that we can use to zoom in and out with. I'm using a USB mouse with a scroll wheel, so I can use that USB mouse's scroll wheel to zoom in and out. So I'm just going to move the map just so we're a little bit further up on the top there, just by left clicking with the arrow. And again, I can mark my next point just the crossroads a little bit further up, and again it's snapped the route on the road for me. And we're just getting up to Alnwick now, so I'm just going to get to the centre of Alnwick and click my last point, and that's my simple route created. Now I've only clicked about 3 times there on the map page. That's classed as 3 via points, or what we know as 3 shaping points. Now when we click these points on the map page, just something important to know, when you do a direct route as the previous exercises, you can have up to 250 points per route and the GPS will cope with that absolutely fine. But when you do a turn-by-turn type route using any of the routing profiles in this routing option other than the direct routing, the maximum number of points is 50. Now when you do a cycle route, bear in mind if you're doing a long route and you're just clicking a start and end, if I'd simply clicked the start point and the end point, that would only be classed as 2 routing points, way within the 50 points that you can actually have. What we will show in a further video is how if you're doing a really long route for cycling, you can actually convert the route to a track when you're finished. You won't then get the turn-by-turn instructions, but you will still be able to follow that track on the screen of your GPS. The reason we say that is a track can actually be made up of 10,000 points, so it's a way you can still use the software to create the route using this snap-on road, so you're not having to try and draw the route on the roads, but we convert it to a track. But if your route is way under 50 points, you don't need to worry about doing that. What I'm going to do now is, because we're finished the route, I'm just going to click on the hand tool just to finish this route. And what we'll do on the next video is we're going to show you how you look at all of the route properties, look at the directional arrows within these routes that we've been creating, and how we amend the routes and move points around in the next set of videos. So that was a nice simple turn-by-turn route using the Basecamp software for cycling. We hope you found this video useful, and thanks for watching.